Lane swaps are ruining the esports scene of League of Legends, but their solution to the lane swap meta is actually ruining League of Legends on a fundamental level, and it's also breaking the game completely. In this video, I will be going through what exactly is going on, how Riot could possibly fix it, and what some high-elo players think about this situation. And did you know that 77% of you have not subscribed? I know, that's crazy. Well, if you're part of the 77%, please be sure to subscribe. I need to pay for my divorce lawyer. If you've been watching League esports for the past year, or you watched Worlds last year, you know that there's this scary tactic that pretty much every single esports team has been abusing. That has also been a pain in the ass in the early days of the esports as well. I'm of course talking about lane swaps. If you don't know what lane swaps are, let me quickly explain to the Iron players and ARAM enthusiasts. Lane swapping is basically a strategy that allows the team to funnel gold and XP to champions that otherwise would have a hard time getting those resources. So it basically dodges otherwise extremely hard matchups. For example, if you're picking an ADC that scales later than the enemy team ADC, swapping lanes and facing the enemy top laner removes the problems with the early game. This also completely shuts down the aspect of counter-picking top laners, because now as a top laner, you have to lane against the enemy bot lane. So it basically destroys counterpicking these lanes in general. Lane swapping isn't anything new, we've seen this for like 10 plus years now. Like here's for example one iteration of lane swapping way back in 2012 with CLG versus Moscow 5. This is most likely not the first time lane swaps were experimented with, but this was the oldest recording I could find. And they have been coming back in and out of fashion multiple times in the past years. Last year they came back and the tactic was dominating the scene for a good while. Lane swaps was the most used tactic at Worlds as well. But like, what is the big problem with lane swaps then? Isn't it just a tactic that seems to work for the pro teams, and they should do that because, well, that's the best way to win the game, right? Well, I have reasons why lane swaps shouldn't be a thing. 1. Lane swap metas is boring as shit to watch, because it basically makes every single game the same. Top laner can't play the game, gets dove, dies, and he can't farm for the next 10 minutes. And it also makes the top laners not really want to play the game. 2. It basically makes lane swapping a coin flip, because if that is the best tactic, the enemy team also wants to do it, right? But if both teams lane swap, the lane swap technically didn't even happen.
It's like poker. It's like gambling, you know. If we swap on your swap, we're gonna match. But if you don't swap on a swap that you should swap on, and we do swap, we've swapped ourselves out of a good lane. It's a gamble. It's like in CS when you're defusing the bomb. Are they defusing it or are they faking? Are they swapping or are they not swapping? You know.
And 3, and I think this is the biggest reason, it creates a big disconnect between solo queue and regular league versus the esports scene, because now they're technically playing 2 different games. You could also do lane swaps in solo queue, sure, but you need communication to do that, and famously, League doesn't really have that. So you would only see this in high-elo solo queue games, if really there either. So these tactics create a big disconnect between the viewer and the game they're watching, because they can't really do this in their games, so they're basically watching something they cannot relate to. Riot has noticed this as well, and recently they rolled out a feature that basically removes lane swaps. And it went horribly wrong. Riot released lane swap detection, which basically detects if somebody else is in your lane that's not supposed to be there, and gives you crazy debuffs for it. While detected, defending turret deals 1000% damage to minions. Defending turret and minions give gold and XP from their kills to the nearest allied champion in the lane. Offending champions gain 50% less gold and XP from minions. This will linger for 20 seconds in the top lane and 6 seconds for mid. In top lane only, the defending turret will also deal 1000% damage to champions, and the defending champion has a 50% damage reduction under their turret. And this change has actually resulted in some funny clips.
Lane swap the tactic that leave the area, bro. How long is this shit? How long is this on? I got no XP for those minions.
But you still a dog.
Oh no. Bro, this lanes of the tactic just completely...
And here's how the detection system works. From 130 to 330, if 2 enemy champions, both of whom don't have a jungle item, are in top, mid lane or surrounding areas. If the team has 2 or more junglers, junglers will now be included in the check. Champions who are about to trigger lane swap detection will get a warning ping as well as a text warning that they're about to trigger lane swapping penalties. Champions who trigger lane swap detection will have a debuff. So basically you will get this big ass text on your screen that you're about to trigger the lane swap penalty. So this change does indeed deny traditional lane swapping, but it also warps the game fundamentally. Like, you cannot invade enemy jungler as a support anymore, you cannot late invade as a team anymore, and it also completely removes playstyles from the game. Did I say it denies lane swapping completely? Well, I meant to say that it actually doesn't remove lane swapping.
Lane swap rules. Alright, so you put your top laner bot together with your support. You put your bot laner mid, alright, and then you put your mid laner top, because obviously the matchups like Aurora, let's say you say Aurora top, into, let's say, a Jax or something, you're laning top, and then your top laner here is a tank, and then after the first wave, you support, you just lane here, you chill, you're not gonna get dove, you're chilling, and then your support goes into mid, because the rules and the restrictions are gone for mid lane at 215, and there you go, you're lane swapping again.
So the detection system doesn't completely remove lane swap, and it can be abused. So what could Riot possibly do about this issue? Well, I asked my fellow content creators what they think about the new system, how it has affected them, and what could Riot do to fix this issue. First, ASAP, the Vel'Koz God. The real problem with lane swap hard-coded solution is that it harms creativity for most players for the sake of competitive and spectator experience. Most people who come to my channel or watch videos were like, I've never seen this, why are they removing it? So hard, why is it a big deal? Why am I seeing Call of Duty out of combat zone bullshit in my games? They must have known the negatives beforehand, but still chose to do it, which means Riot is desperate, taking a shit solution which majority don't like for the sake of view maxing on competitive and protecting their main revenue stream. League without competitive dies within a year, so they take it very seriously. I personally dislike the solution, and as a coder, I want to vomit seeing so many hard-coded lines about percentage, bonus XP, damage, defense, etc. Nobody will remember these numbers. They are not intuitive and are super disruptive. Fighting early near tower, triggering a pop-up on your screen makes me sick. And he's right, like, League has become this game filled with pop-ups. Like, now we have the dragon spawning pop-up, grub spawning pop-up, now Atakan spawning pop-up, and also now the lane swap triggered pop-up. Like, there's just too many UI changes that people are gonna get confused about. That being said, I'm yet to find a solid modular solution to the lane swap conundrum. Okay, ASAP, I'm so sorry. Please don't use big words. I don't know what they mean. I didn't see any good alternatives, and the fact is that people will always find ways to play the game in ways that are not intended, Baus, etc. One interesting solution would be to spawn Dragon earlier and make him scale with numbers of players on the bottom side, making him easy to take for the non-swapping team if they are not matched. Not a huge swing of power, but it would promote more tactics around it. The trick in my mind is to create these give and take situations instead of outright blocking certain plays in entirety. And that is a very interesting way to look at fixing the lane swaps. And then we actually have a player who's been the most vocal about this change because it really affects his playstyle. Bardinet, the roaming Bard guy. TLDR, if you don't know who Bardinet is, he's an infamous top lane player who really doesn't like to be in top lane. Whatever your perception of him is, he has risen to respectable ranks doing something unique. Kinda like how Baus became famous for his Sion, min-maxing death timers for gold. Anyways, I asked him on stream how he felt about these changes.
Yeah, the lane swap me over. It's not me over. Okay, I'm gonna go into detail. Basically, my early game plan is usually invading enemy top jungle. The red buff counts as mid lane. So if I invade red buff, my mid laner gets cucked. Even though I'm 3 screens away, that's not even specific to me, but you cannot invade the top side as a support anymore, because you have to, if you want to go back to bot lane, you have to go through mid. One thing, it's frustrating for us to have to deal with them nerfing creative playstyles, but I don't think that that's not the intent, right? It's just that it's for the better good, right? The biggest part about it is that it's not only a nerf, it's a systemic change that is invisible, and you have to circumvent it by dodging the invisible wall that exists only in the early games. It doesn't feel good. One thing that they could do is that the current changes are kind of smart, honestly, but they need to lower the thing. I would completely remove the gold and XP debuff from mid lane, Because right now, when you trigger the thing mid, you're not laning mid. You're just walking through the fucking jungle, or you invaded and you have to go back bot. It's stuff like that, you know. This is not correct. Not good.
I also interviewed him later on, so he could be more specific in his answers.
I understand Riot's sentiments. I know where they're coming from with this, because they want to fix pro play and lane swap being way too prevalent. But at the same time, they also want the game that the people play and the game that the people are playing on scene to be the same. So that's why they didn't make a rule to just forbid pro players from lane swapping, which would have been the cleanest version. But I do get it where they come from. This also impacts people who play differently without lane swapping.
Yeah.
The thing is, they say again and again that they're thankful for people using innovative strategies because it prevents the game from being stale and etc. At the same time, they don't cater to us at all here, because lots of us are impacted, and in a way that doesn't feel good at all, because it's not just a nerf. It's a nerf where you have to circumvent artificial, invisible rules. The biggest issue, I think, is that since they wanted lane swap to be completely gone, they went way overboard.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Hammered that in like big time. If I invade the red buff level 1 on my own, the zone extends so far off that if I'm at red buff, it considers that I'm mid lane, even though I'm 4 screens away, 4,000 units away from being even able to get experience from mid. But my mid laner will get half experience, half of gold, just because I'm fighting the enemy jungle on red. And so invading level 1 is not an option for me now anymore. Which you could argue is good for the game, maybe not, but the thing is, that's not what their aim was for them.
Do you think the detection system otherwise is good, but it just needs like tweaks in it?
Exactly. I think the system it's the best they could come up with, and I cannot think of a better solution at all.
Yeah.
For me, the fix I would like to see is removing completely the gold and XP debuff for mid laners. When people trigger this in mid lane, they're never trying to lane swap. They're just pathing through mid, because it's in the middle of the map. If you want to cross side from one side to the other, you have to go through mid. So and sometimes there's a fiesta in top side, and people have to go back to bot lane, and now they cannot go through mid because there's an invisible wall of lava. So you have to recall and walk through the lane. It doesn't feel good, right?
And then maybe like the area that it affects.
Yeah, exactly. The other big thing is reducing the area. They have to look at it again, because I don't know. I'm biased, right? So
I mean, yeah.
But I think I should be allowed to go fight the enemy jungler level 1 on his raptors without taking my mid laner's XP for nothing. You know?
Yeah, that is true. Like I think it does like completely remove like an aspect from the game, the system basically, like you cannot invade red buff, blue buff anymore as like 2 people.
It goes against innovation. And
yeah, it does.
Lane swapping being gone is probably for the best. I agree with it. As a player, my sentiment is that this does not feel good.
So basically, the players this affects aren't really mad about the change, because they know lane swaps are something Riot needs to tackle. I think their solution to lane swaps is pretty good if they do tweak the areas where it affects and the gold XP reduction you receive in mid lane. But even with this lane swap detection system, there is a possibility lane swaps aren't completely gone, as Yamato said. So we will most likely return to this topic when teams and players figure out what they can do and what they cannot do. So all in all, their solution isn't the best, but with a few small tweaks, it is possible that this could put an end to lane swaps for good. But what do you guys think about this lane swap detection system? Do you maybe have any better ideas? Let me know down in the comments below, and while you're there, please be sure to subscribe. Also, side note, Lillia is getting buffed next patch, so actually Riot is the best company ever, and they have never fucked up ever. Best company, very nice.